I work at this little audio company called Dolby Laboratories, and we try to make audio sound as good as possible across as many different kinds of hardware and software platforms, and together with the whole video part of it now these days, and making that a very cohesive and immersive experience. So I think it comes back to recording those albums of my parents onto cassette tape and being really wowed that you could do that, and there must be some really amazing technology behind that. And then, you know, the difference between the way my parents' hi-fi system sounded compared to my little cassette deck kind of gave me aspirational goals to get my own stereo system. And when I had my own stereo system, thinking, well, you know what, it still doesn't sound as good as a live event. Why is that? And digging more into that and understanding the science behind making music and playing it back just interested me more and more, and as it does to this day. I remember very clearly the first time I ever heard the Sex Pistols on vinyl and how deeply it touched me. And fast forwarding today, when I listen to it again, I'm not sure that it's necessarily because I've heard it so many times, but it just doesn't quite, I don't know, capture me in the same way that it did back then. I'm wondering that's also part of what that when you're younger, as your prefrontal cortex is still forming, and maybe it speaks more to your amygdala or whatever, your hindbrain.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting what you were saying about in high school, how you kind of form into these tribes of, you know, I like this kind of music and they like that kind of music, and never shall the twain meet. But now it's like, actually, I like pretty much all of the music that everybody in my high school listened to these days.
You know, it's interesting what you're saying about high school and music and memories, because I remember so much music and so many details about the musicians and the time and when the record was released and where they were on the charts. And I listened to music with the kids all the time, in the car, in the house. I cannot remember one name.
That's just because you're getting old.
One lyric. And then I think, is it because I'm getting old? Is it because my brain's filled up with other useless shite just because I'm 50? Or is it because of the stage of life and how that music sticks in your brain and your experience? And to your point, is part of how you form your identity. I wonder if that's going to be different for our kids. You know, it's talking about the physical experience. Like when I think before I had my own boombox, having to be in the living room listening to music and negotiate whose turn it was, and the physicality of being by the radio when the top 20 was on the radio, and the physicality of the tapes, and the physicality of having to push play, record to get that on the tape.
And because there's a lot of time and effort invested in that, because you would have to mix a mixed tape happens in real time when you're, you know, either recording from another tape or you're recording from a vinyl album. That Maxell C90 tape is 45 minutes per side of that person personally curating something just for you, which is kind of special.
So prepubescent, I wasn't quite 7, but close to 7, ABBA, a lot of ABBA. So I guess I would have been 7 actually that summer when ABBA won the Eurovision Song Contest in 1975. And my girlfriend Kira and I across the road became obsessed. So I listened to a lot of ABBA, which was very different to what I was listening to at home, because my parents had a constant music playing constantly. And I think it was around about that same year, actually, that my parents had worked enough overtime to save up money to buy a Hitachi 3-in-1 hi-fi, which my grandmother kept calling the hibachi. And so that was
you shouldn't operate it indoors.
You shouldn't operate it indoors. And And I remember that because in order to lip sync to to ABBA, they had the little microphone so you could record your voice on the hi-fi. So she had one from her dad's Hitachi and I had mine from my dad's Hitachi. And we'd get the mics and plug them into the back of our underwear and use them as our microphones to lip sync to ABBA. But my parents played a lot of Beatles, a lot of 60s, and my dad a lot of folk. My dad was also a singer, and he made part of his living in his youth as a singer when he first moved to Canada. So singing was always associated with doing dishes. And that is a tradition that's carried on now with both of our children, and your children, singing at the dishes. And also just singing once you got past pint number 2, there would inevitably be singing and lots of heated debate about
Leonard Cohen.
And
John
just
Prine.
singing and so conversations about music, singing music, listening to music, that was a big part of growing up for us. Cliffs of Dooneen, Nancy Spain, Fields of Athenry.
Can you sing any of them?
I can, but I won't.
Really?
I haven't even had half a gin and tonic. There's no way I'm singing that.
I mean, you know it'll make a better film if you do. Did your dad hate ABBA?
Yes, I think he hated ABBA, but he tempered it because I liked it so much. Yeah, and then that just was the beginning of endless dinner debates about 60s versus the 70s, quality of lyrics, quality of music, then that transferred into the 80s. It was always one of his beloved sports to spar about music.
Yeah,
He usually won because he was relentless, so you just give up. Because he just had a larger catalog
Or he'd always fall back to Shallow Youth.
Yeah, that's it. No,
Or
yeah.
Callow
Youth. That's what he said. Callow Youth.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Callow Youth.
Yeah, I don't mind ABBA. Do you know they're coming out with a new album?
I don't listen to ABBA anymore.
Okay.
You have a lot of vinyl and
Yeah, 1 or 2.
How many do you have?
4,000 or 5,000 albums that have followed us across North America.
Crisscrossed the continent a couple times.
Yeah, it's well-traveled vinyl.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, I guess, of a big snapshot of my musical tastes at those points in time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, it is a bit of a portrait, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of maybe not such a good portrait, but
And we actually had to have a conversation of getting rid of it, which was very difficult because that's always what I associate. It's a big part of how I understand him is his record collection. Mm-hmm. And when I met him, his, university room lined with records with milk crates and moving to San Francisco and trying to buy a house and houses, what we could afford and houses being much smaller here. We thought, okay, this is it. We may just have to ditch the records. But we didn't have to.
Fortunately, saner minds prevail. And,
we had the same conversation when it was time for John to get rid of all his cassette tapes, well, both of us. Mm-hmm. And he made a very careful selection of purchased cassette tapes and mixed tapes that were his kind of beloved selection on a wooden rack. There must have been, 5 or 6 dozen of them? Mm-hmm. And gave them to my brother, who is 21 years. Philistine. 21 years younger than us. I mean, he's a young guy. He's 30 now, right? Gave them to him when he was in high school. Mm. He threw them out.
Yeah.
My dad threw them out because he didn't know what to do with them. He had no relationship with them. Mm-hmm. And I remember you feeling this was much better than throwing them out, is give them to Connor and pass them on to the next generation. But there was no way for him to connect with that. And John was a little gutted, more than a little gutted.
Well, I think I've grown up a bit since then. And I think that was very unfair of me
to load that
onto him.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've had, in the last 2 years, we've seen more shows than, certainly I ever saw
almost
in
like
my
the
youth.
last 10 years combined.
In the last 10 years combined. And it's probably something about, I just never had money to go to shows. But we've seen a lot of 80s bands. But it's been an amazing thing to do that together because we were both teenagers in different parts of the world,
Yeah.
experiencing
Listening to
and
the same
loving that music, and then going together and seeing them for the first time. You know, was OMD, was that the first time you'd seen them? Mm-hmm. We just saw Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark a couple months ago.
And Depeche Mode.
And especially OMD, though, that was astonishing. I mean, these geriatrics on the stage, just giving her, as they'd say in Newfoundland.
So you get a sense that they're people that are still doing it for the fun
sheer
and
love.
and pleasure of doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I wouldn't.
But it was fantastic. And speaking of, actually, there's another one, was where it was better than the recorded experience, was seeing Brian Ferry. And that was in the last 2 years too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that guy's, I think, 71.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Well, he's quite a performer.
It was superb. Anyway, it's been a nice thing for us because it's not necessarily music that we experience together, but it's both. These bands have been a big part of our growing up, and then to see them together in our 50s, it's been super fun, and fun to see it with other gray-haired people.